Forge FC is ready for their upcoming match.
Simply stunning stuff. And finally, their goal. My word, what a rocket.
Now, let's get you up to date with Anthony Urciuoli and Match Day Preview on the Forge Audio Network.
Hey now, Forge fans. It's the Match Day Preview on the Forge Audio Network. I'm your host, Anthony Urciuoli, our first ever on the Forge Audio Network. We're still kind of new. The first ever Match Day Preview into a playoff game. And it happens this weekend. On Saturday, Foothills County is the place to be, because that's where Forge FC and Calvary FC go head-to-head in the first leg of the semifinal matchup between the two clubs. The return leg in Hamilton will be the following weekend on the Sunday. Tickets available now, but we'll get to that in a moment. You have two clubs, second seed, third seed, who are so evenly matched. Even if you look across the board statistically, advanced stats, minor differences, but still very evenly matched. These two clubs have met 17 times before. Only once has a match between these two clubs been decided by more than one goal. And that was a 2-0 win by Forge last year at Calgary. Now, and keep in mind, that match, Cavalry had better than 63% of the possession. So it was even more evenly matched than that score indicated. So we're pretty sure we're going to get a tight one again, especially in this first leg against Cavalry on the road for Forge. Now, what's coming up in this episode? We are going to talk to Alex Gangué-Ruzic, who is with CanPL.ca. He's just, a cornucopia of, I know we're past Thanksgiving, but a cornucopia of soccer knowledge is Alex. He's going to join us, and he knows a lot about Forge. He knows a lot about Cavalry. He'll help us bring all of it together, and you'll get an in-depth preview of these two ties that are coming up in the semi-final. Also, head coach, technical director Bobby Smyrniotis is going to join, and so is Alex Achinioti-Jönsson, Forge FC defender/defensive midfielder, though this year he's been mostly a defender. And what an incredible story Alex has been. We're going to break that down, talk about Alex's contributions. In fact, we might not be talking about, I don't want to be, overdo it here, but who knows what we're talking about now at this time of year if Alex isn't able to step in and kind of solidify that defensive unit for Forge FC. How many sports can you think of? How many athletes have been able to just completely switch positions at this stage in their career after they became a pro because of how prolific they've been at their position? For Alex Achinioti-Jönsson, it was as a midfielder. He's asked to play defense. He asked actually to play center back, and impressed. And he has been the glue for that unit, and it's been unbelievable. So we'll hear from Alex. We'll hear Coach talking about Alexander as well. One, I mentioned the stats earlier and how evenly matched these two clubs are. The one stat that stood out as I went through the advanced numbers is, first of all, Cavalry loves to shoot the ball. Now, Forge, they've talked about wanting to get more shots on target and get more attempts, but Cavalry just lets it fly. Cavalry will take shots. They will test you early. They will shoot from almost anywhere. A little bit of a different approach than Forge. As similar as they are in terms of how they like to attack and possess the ball, this is one thing. Forge wants more quality. So they'll work it into the box. They like the quality up front with their forwards. They're confident in every single one of them, 1v1 inside the box. And so, they encourage their players to take players on, to get aggressive, to go right at the keeper, to get balls into dangerous areas. Cavalry, though, is confident in their ability to score from distance. So when they see it, and it helps when you have some of the midfielders they have, Ali Musi is an example, they have guys that will let it rip from well outside the 12-yard box. Forge is near the bottom of the league when it comes to attempts from outside of that 12-yard area. And part of that's by design because, again, they're looking for higher percentage chances. Cavalry, though, bit of a different story. And I think that's the one kind of thing that stood out to me. But let's check in with the club, see how they're feeling. As I mentioned earlier, we're gonna check in with our CanPL correspondent, Alex Gangué-Ruzic. But first, head coach, technical director, Bobby Smyrniotis, his pre-match media conference from Calgary. Yes, that's right. He was in Calgary doing this. Here's what Bobby had to say.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those strange things, it feels, to be honest, like another week, another game in front of us. It's just these ones mean a little bit more. So I think the guys are aware of that. But this is what you play for all season. This is the way the league has been set up with the playoff format. So it's about getting here and then going after a trophy. So we've accomplished that first phase, and now we've got 2 legs ahead of us. Starting tomorrow here in Calgary field, we've had a lot of success playing at. Field looks in great condition, so I think everyone's looking forward to it.
These games that you guys play with Cavalry, they're always entertaining, but sometimes, can get a little testy, a little heated. How much of an importance do you guys put on discipline in these games, especially in a 2-legged tie where, you want the same guys on the pitch in the second leg?
Yeah, I think, you look at it as a playoff game, and these are it. It's either the season is 10 more days or it's 17 more days. So it doesn't matter who you play, Cavalry, Pacific, or Ottawa. I think every team is in the same boat. They want to stretch the season as long as they can and be there. And I think with our 2 teams, we've had excellent games. And I always take some of this other stuff, some of the heated moments out of it, and I look at more of the tactics at play and what the 2 teams do on the field. And I think that's always the bigger story, and I think that'll be the bigger story in these 2 games as well. Cavalry is usually a certain team when they play at home, and they're a certain different team when they play away. They're a team that morphs a lot more this year than they have in the past. They're a lot different of a team in those cases, and that's what we're looking forward to. And after that, it's you always play the long game in these. It's 2 times 90 minutes, and everyone needs to have that in their heads and in the team, and make sure we focus on the football components of the game.
Wanted to get your sort of evaluation of Alexander's season this year, and how much of a big role he'll have to play on Saturday, especially given that Daniel won't be available.
Yeah, just phenomenal. It's the easiest way to put it, and it's kind of sums up a little bit of our season. This is the first year where we haven't had a set of center backs who have stayed healthy for a string of games, and he's been pushed as, for me, the best number 6 in the league to play as a center back, and he's done it. Yeah, I don't know how to describe it. He's been absolutely excellent in his role there, and every 2-3 weeks he's got a different partner playing with him. So not only is it a new position, but every 2 to 3 weeks, due to different injuries to Methuselah, Samuel, Malik, Olabibelavu, he's always been playing with someone different, and he's been able to keep up his standard of play, and not only standard of play defending, but on the ball. So I think he's just been phenomenal all season, and that's a testament to our defensive line. It's a totally new defensive line this year, and all 4 guys. And then, you even go further back behind Alex into Tristan Henry, who's had to have this season with, a whole different back 4 in front of him. And we've been able to do it very well and give up the least amount of goals in the league.
Yeah, you hear the recognition from Bobby for, his entire squad, but Alex Achinioti-Jönsson, you just cannot, there's no way to overstate his contributions this year to do what he's done. And to be one of the best defenders in the league, a guy that just started playing that position regularly this year, and he's been unbelievable. Speaking of, here is Alex talking about this matchup with Cavalry and his development this season.
I think there's a lot of excitement going into our 4th year of playoffs, and we've had 3 successful seasons behind us, and had a good season with a bit of ups and downs, but I think everyone is excited for this time of the year. So no, it's good.
Just talk about your season and your growth as a player. You've developed kind of more of you're already, an all-around midfielder, but being able to play center back and getting the recognition for it from the fans as well. How do you feel like you've evolved as a player and grown?
I think it's definitely been a learning experience. I volunteered at center back before, earlier in my career as well, but this is the first time that I've played it this much, and I've had a lot of help, especially from Eddie here, David Edgar in the club, with positioning and how to work with different kinds of things, because it's very different from being a defensive midfielder, right? You're the last line of defense, so you can't be always as aggressive. And I think I've grown into that during the season and kind of evaluate a little bit differently than what I do in the midfield. But no, it's been interesting and fun.
Yeah, Alex, by the way, he's been with Forge, I mean, basically from day one. You know, he was honored for his 100 matches this season. And again, to be with a squad this long, to be a pro as long as he has, playing a specific position and then having to, and volunteering to, just change. And all of a sudden, you're learning. You know, he talked about David Edgar, assistant coach for Forge, former Forge defender, a guy with so much pro experience, played in the Premier League for a while. And for Alex Achinioti-Jönsson, it's benefited him immensely to have David Edgar as part of this staff and help him grow. And, you know, at the end of the day, it looked like Forge was in trouble early in the year when they're dealing with the injuries they were dealing with. Again, you know, Matusala went down. Malik Olawabi-Bellu went down. Daniel Crutzen went down. Dominic Samuel's down at different points. Alex has been the glue, the stabilizing factor on that defensive line. All right, let's really break down this matchup now. Maybe not the series as a whole, but a little bit. We'll talk about the series as a whole, but specifically this first match in this tie between Forge and Cavalry, the semifinal. The winner will play the winner of Pacific and Ottawa, and I want to remind you Forge fans that if Forge can beat if Forge can beat Cavalry and Pacific can get by Ottawa, Forge and Pacific would meet again. It would be a rematch of last year's final that was played late in December. And if you remember, and you were there, I mean, the weather was miserable. Forge had just traveled a couple days before that for CONCACAF play. It wasn't a pretty match, and the result wasn't pretty for Forge. But there isn't a chance here of redemption, because Forge would host a championship match against Pacific again this year if the two clubs did meet. I know, one step at a time. I can look ahead, you can look ahead. The team can't, but we're allowed to, so we're going to. All right, let's break down that opening tie between Forge and Cavalry. Alex Gangué-Ruzic from CanPL.ca joins the matchday preview. In your opinion, is this the ideal matchup for the neutral supporter in terms of maybe getting the best entertainment value between two clubs that do not like each other on the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get much better than this in terms of history, in terms of past battles, in terms of just quality, intensity, rivalry. It kind of ticks all those boxes. So it's really exciting to see. I think one of the most fascinating stats was they've met 17 times before. Cavalry and Forge have 16 games decided by one goal or less. That's just absurd. That's unheard of. In terms of competitiveness, there's been so many memorable games. There's been high-stake games, regular season matchups. Like, everything about this is exciting for sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's two clubs that they play similar styles. And, I mean, you would know this better than me. I mean, I've seen Forge all season. I haven't seen Cavalry as much as you probably have. Is it fair to say that the clubs are very similar in their philosophy and their attacking style?
Yeah, I mean, both teams are clubs that want to hold onto the ball. They want to do good things with the ball. I mean, they've got two great teachers in Bobby Smyrniotis on Forge's side, and then obviously Cavalry's Tommy Wheeldon Jr. They're two builders of the league, coaches that really want to emphasize high quality attacking play, good philosophies defensively. So I think in terms of modern soccer, this is a matchup with two teams that want to emulate that. There's teams that, for Cavalry's side, they want to be tactically flexible. They want to be fluid. They want to, do a lot of things that we're used to seeing in top leagues around the world. And they've done a good job of executing that, much as Forge has. We've seen both their teams tap into their depth as well. They're teams that don't necessarily rely on just 3 or 4 guys to carry the load. This is a team of 15, 16, 17 contributors that will step up. So it's going to be a lot like a top matchup in the sense that there's going to be unheralded heroes. It's going to be a coaching battle. It's going to be a chess match. And that's partially why it makes this battle so exciting.
Yeah, with Forge, they like to use their wingers, whether it's Chouanier, whether it's Borges. I know he's been playing more of a central midfield type role as of late, but there's a lot of attacking spaces. Bobby talks a lot about attacking spaces, and a lot of those spaces are on the flanks. Calvary, what makes that attack go? What is kind of their bread and butter when they are on the front foot?
Yeah, I mean, they've always done such a good job of attacking wide areas as well. That's been an area they've always thrived in. They've had the ever reliable Jose Escalante has been an example of, what sort of that wide play looks like. Their fullbacks love to push forward. You see Bradley Vliet will push forward. Dan Klomp will also push forward from the fullback sometimes, no matter which winger it is, if it's Ben Fisk, if it's John Anil SC. We've seen also the wide players are a key area of emphasis, and then from there it's trying to get the ball to use the number 9 as a focal point. That's one thing that Cavalry has done a great job this year, is using the number 9 because they've had so many options. I mean, first it was Joe Mason, then he was hurt, and then it was Erben Peppel, and now he's obviously in Europe, and then Meyer Bevan has also contributed. They kind of play a system that tries to get the number 9 the ball in those areas, and then try to get those shots, those crosses in from there.
What about the trenches through the midfield? Forge likes their depth at midfield with multiple guys that can step in, whether it's Becker, Hojap Rapport, Noah Jensen's done a great job this year. Sissoko has been great. And even Borges when he's played in that 10 role. Cavalry's midfield, does it stack up? Is it relatively on par with what Forge is able to put out?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of depth as well in midfield, and I think that's like we've seen with Forge, it's what makes the modern teams tick is what goes on in midfield. I think a super underrated contributor has been Ali Musi this year. He's stepped up big time in that number 10, and he's kind of a guy that when we talk about the wide areas, he's someone who benefits in the middle, playing off the striker, kind of creating space. You look at it, the depth around him, be it Elliot Simmons, Charlie Trafford, Elijah Adekubi, a lot of options who can step in. They're all different profiles too, which kind of lends to Cavalry's teams. Some days they'll be a little more possession oriented in midfield. We'll see players who can really play with the ball. The other days will be more of a physical battle in midfield. They have guys who will want to try and maybe slow things down there and make sure they don't get beat in that area. So the middle of the park is 100% key. And with Cavalry, they put a big emphasis on and off the ball as well. It's not, always right. What you can see on the ball. So a guy like Charlie Trafford, for example, who can get physical, who can mix things up in the middle, but also play on the ball is a big part of that. And I imagine in a playoff series of this nature where both teams, there's not going to be a lot of real estate, someone like that will be key for Cavalry to try and slow down Forge, because there's so much technicality in Forge's midfield, as we know.
It's funny because, when you look at the two clubs as well in the matches these two clubs have played over the years, you mentioned the stat earlier, only one game has been decided by more than a goal. So when you look at that and how even the teams are and how evenly matched they are, even the match that Forge did win 2-0, I believe Cavalry had like 63% of the possession. So even in that game, it was close despite the scoreline. So I do wonder, though, those finer details, right? It could take one mistake from either side. It could come down to a set piece, a throw in. Do you get that feeling that the finer details will, maybe get magnified even more so in a matchup like this?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of always been the crux of this battle. It always feels like a battle decided on moments. It's really who can capitalize the moments, because how Forge are going to play, how Cavalry are going to play. So if you think back to that final, for example, when Forge beat Cavalry, what won them that final was two key moments. It was in that first leg where they were able to get that goal from Tristan Borges after, his penalty was saved minutes earlier. That was a moment that proved to be crucial. And then from there in the second leg, they had that moment at the end when Cavalry were pushing. And I think if you're looking at this game, it's going to be a similar blueprint. It's who can win that tackle in midfield, who can make that through ball at that crucial time, who can finish their chances, because it feels like a game where there's going to be limited amounts of those moments. So I think the team that can really shine in those moments can look very different. It can be as much as a defensive error. It can be a moment of brilliance in the attack. That's the kind of unique nature of this sort of game. So it's really going to come down to executing those sorts of details at a high level, especially those areas where teams have an advantage. I mean, set pieces is a great one you mentioned, just because coaches will plan, they will prepare. So I'm sure for Calvary, for example, they'll be looking at potential corner kicks that they can thrive on. With Forge as well, they're a team that loves set pieces. So it's really going to be a detail-oriented chess match.
How do you think that the format changes things? When you have the two-leg semifinal, does it change how you approach the first game, knowing there's a second one? Do you, if you're Forge, for example, are you more willing to play for a tie? Not that Forge is ever going to play for a tie, but you can maybe be a little more patient. Maybe the chess match will be a little more prevalent early on. Does the system lend itself to maybe just a change in approach than you would if it was a one-game knockout?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's a battle of wits. And what's unique as well, there's no away goal. And I think that adds a further
Right.
complexity to the two legs, because you can really, there's no bad way to approach it. I think you can come in with a bit more cautious because of the lack of away goal to start knowing, okay, that, say if you're Forged, for example, you're on the road, there's not this pressure to say, hey, we need an away goal. It's okay. A 0-0
Right.
result on the road isn't a bad result. Obviously, like you say, you want to go for a win, but on the flip side, there's also this, reality of, since there's no away goal, almost sometimes you need 2 goals to the one before, because you get that one away goal, it'd be worth double, whereas now it's okay, might as well just go for it and get that sort of extra goal. So what I think is, with the 100, it turns it to a 180-minute game. Really, it's going to be, this first game is just a first half. It's just there's going to be adjustments, there's going to be that sort of movement. It's going to really make it a war of wits, a battle that's going to be played across 180 minutes, which is super unique.
Yeah, I was talking to David Chouanier this week, and he mentioned in that second game, if we're tied, we'd go straight to penalty kicks. We don't want it to go to penalty kicks. We want to try and end it before, and Forge especially has had some tough luck in PKs over the years. But it's, so even that kind of changes things where, one club, if some clubs might be okay taking it to PKs, especially on the road, but Forge is saying, we don't even want to leave it to chance. We're going to try and win this within the 90 minutes in that second leg. So there is already some of that kind of planning going into this tie.
Yeah, for sure. And I think penalty kicks is always, an imposing figure. It really depends on the situation. I think for Forge, like you mentioned, it's a great point. You're at home the second leg. You want to get a win. You want to finish it in style. Maybe whereas for Cavalry, depending on the circumstances, if you're on the road, you kind of want, like in some cases, to be a team that gets penalty kicks on the road, because it can be such a momentum sapping thing. It can be frustrating. It can be choppy. You can really take advantage of that. So I think definitely the penalty kicks also adds another element. It kind of, again, adds to this unique specter of this 180-minute game where there's no away goals. It feels like it's going to be a 2 games. And I think in particular, the first leg is really going to prosper from that. Because I think, for example, if you're Cavalry, you're going to want to have a lead by the time you go to the second leg. You don't want to be chasing a game against Forge at home. Conversely, if you're Forge, if you can get that 1 or that 2 goal lead and you come to Tim Hortons Field and you're dictating play, that also is a huge advantage. So both teams will kind of have to go for it a bit in the first leg, because if it's tied heading into the second leg, that will certainly change things, especially with the lack of away goal and the penalties looming.
Yeah, awesome stuff. I do want to ask you, though, before I let you go, because there is going to be interest in the other matchup, because if Forge can make it through and Pacific can make it through, Forge would host that 1-game championship, be a rematch of last year under better weather conditions, I would imagine. But that other series, what do you see coming? Ottawa's one of those teams that they still can't quite get the full respect of the other clubs. And maybe it's because of their style. Maybe it's because they just haven't been there like the other clubs have. What are you expecting to see in that other tie between Ottawa and Pacific?
Yeah, the other tie is also very fascinating, just because you got 2 unique clubs. I mean, Ottawa's one where they've had they're the new kids on the block, so to speak. They've come in a bit later, but now they've obviously done very well to put together a great project. And what's scary about Ottawa, if you're watching, is that this seems like a team that's built for the playoffs. They're defensively sound, and teams, as Pacific showed last year, when you don't give up many goals, you're always going to just naturally have a chance to win titles with some timely goals. So Ottawa's got that foundation about them. They've got the home field advantage secured throughout the playoffs. they obviously will feel that they can continue what they've been doing. But meanwhile, Pacific, it's always scary to see a team that's kind of got that championship mentality, and it kind of shone through when a month ago it looked like they might miss out. It looked like it could have been Valor instead, and then they said, no, let's just put the nose down, take care of business, make it in the playoffs. That's sort of scary how ruthless it was. It was 3 wins, 3 back-to-back clean sheets. It was like they were starting to look like that Pacific in the playoffs. So I think because of that, it feels like 2 teams that are built to play in the playoffs. So I feel like that tie is going to be very, very tightly contested in that regard. It feels like one where goals might not be there as much, whereas in this Forge Cavalry game, you just feel like because both teams are going to want to go for it, that might lead to some friction, might lead to some goals. Obviously with cards potentially as well, that always opens up space for attack. Whereas the other game, it feels like it's going to be a real like iron, two iron rods going at each other. And I think it's going to be interesting. Say if Forge is playing Pacific or Ottawa, that's going to be a similar kind of final, and those sorts of finals are tough because as Forge learned last year, all it takes is one moment.
Absolutely, yeah. And teams that don't make a lot of mistakes, like, I mean, Ottawa plays, virtually as mistake-free as you can in this sport, and they're not giving you anything, so you do have to earn it. And it's the kind of, we look at these Final Four clubs, and in true CPL fashion, the parity this year has been unbelievable. I mean, you wouldn't be surprised if any of these 4 teams raise the trophy at the end of the year. That's how evenly it feels right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the fact that just 3 points separates all of them kind of is fitting of that, but it's exactly it. And what's cool, I guess, in a way, is that each team kind of has its unique way about going about things. I mean, you got the Ottawa defensive fortitude, that mentality, and with Forge, you go that they've also got that winning mentality, but they're a bit free flowing about how they go about things. They've got the lead, that best attack in the league, an attack that's deep. But then you go to Cavalry, they're so versatile. They play in different ways. They'll attack you. Some days they defend, some days they attack. You kind of don't know what to expect. And then, you go over to Pacific as well, and they're just a very fluid, team, a team that defends well, likes to score goals. It's kind of cool that every team's done it their way too. There hasn't been one blueprint that you follow this way. And I think because of that, it's going to be really cool to see how these different styles mesh and match up across these series.
Great point. My takeaway from this is that we should have spoken sooner in the season. I'm upset that I waited this long to talk to you because that was great. Alex, thanks so much for doing this.
Awesome. Well, pleasure, Anthony, anytime.
I'm genuinely upset that we're just hearing from Alex Gangué-Ruzic now. I mean, just so much soccer knowledge, articulated so well, really knows this league and knows the clubs. Listen, I'm not one to say that people should lose their jobs, but the producer of this show should lose their job for not booking Alex sooner. I will talk to the producer, who is me. I will talk to myself and make sure that never happens again, and we have Alex on way more often. All right. This is it. I mean, this is pretty much everything you need to know to going into this match, everything you need to be prepared for it. And at the end of the day, you're likely out there you're just going to be cheering on your Forge FC. You don't care about the nitty-gritty, but it's nice to have the background, but you just want to get this going and see what the result is going to be. And you're curious to see what the scoreline will be that will carry over into the second leg of this tie between Forge and Cavalry, because the second leg will be played at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton next Sunday. I was so excited I knocked my microphone over. It's next Sunday. Tickets now available. Be part of history. A historic matchup between Cavalry and Forge at Tim Hortons Field, and you can be there live. Go to forgefc.ca/tickets and make sure you are there in person, because I will be. But let's see what happens this weekend. Forge, Cavalry, out west in Foothills County. We know we're in for a good one. Enjoy. We'll talk to you soon.
Forge FC is prepared, and now you are informed. This has been Match Day Preview with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. Subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.